Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Boom. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Ooh, all of you early risers on the West Coast, welcome to Get Book Solid. Those of you that, I don't know, you might be jumping in your car on the East Coast, welcome to Get Book Solid. Make sure you pay attention to the road. Shawn, Lacey book, and the amazing David Meltzer in the house with you today. David, so fantastic to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in about a year and a half.
Yeah, that's the worst. I haven't talked to you in 3 years, but it's only been days. And that's when you know you have really good friends, when you miss them as well. So I feel the exact same way. So please come meet me somewhere.
I'll meet you in 8 days. How about that? We'll be at SoFi 8 days from today, doing some podcast interviews. Contact us if you want information. You know what? I've been thinking about studying, it's political season, and this is not a political position, but I've been looking at this concept of the broken windows theory. And this is a concept that Rudy Giuliani took as he came in as mayor of New York City. And I've been thinking a lot lately about the small things. And it actually reminds me then of how BJ Palmer, your friend, I've got to get you some text so that you can study his works, has an incredible expose that's called Small Things Are Large. And the whole thing is that if you had a small pebble in your shoe, that is a small thing. But that small pebble in your shoe, if you walk on it for a day, will begin to irritate your foot. That irritated foot might cause you to walk with a limp that might affect your knee or your hip. Then your knee and your hip, if you kept that pebble in the shoe, could eventually make you irritable, give you headaches. It could eventually even destroy your marriage because you're so cranky. And it was all because of a small thing. He says small things are large. And that's kind of the concept of the broken window theory. Take care of the small things. The large things will then take care of yourself. And so I've been really thinking about this with our businesses, with our life. Like, I would love to have a discussion today about how we can tune ourselves into the small things, because it's easy, especially in healthcare, but in business, to only worry about the big things. Revenue's down. Okay, well, what about all of the small things that led to that particular situation? Love to get your initial thoughts on broken window theory and small things are large.
Oh, I went to Georgetown for a semester in my junior year in college. And in the criminal justice system, they teach the broken window theory, which is once you see one window broken, it's okay to have other windows broken. But when you're talking about the idea of these little things becoming huge things and having a huge impact, coming from the sports realm, I think of John Wooden. And John Wooden, he still holds the record for the most victories in a row in the NCAA with UCLA. And he's known not only as the greatest coach of all time, but the players that played for him became not only the greatest players of all time, but also the greatest coaches of all time, and also the philosophies that he taught for life. And one of the philosophies that he taught was you need to do simple better. And Coach Kirby at Georgia, and a variety of other coaches, they will hound you if your shirt's untucked. And the players today, especially with NIL, are like, why is it a big deal that my shirt's untucked? Because you got to do the simple things better. And when I need you not to jump off sides on fourth down when we're at the goal line, you need to know that you need to do the simple things better. And the simple things to do are unfortunately simple not to do. And that's because human nature hates consistent behavior and commitment to consistent behavior. But that's what it takes to be successful. So I really challenge the people around me to understand how important it is to do the simple things better. And Coach Wooden, to bring this back home, he would start with the freshmen. Back then, there was only freshman basketball. You couldn't play on the team. There's no one and dones back then. You had to play freshman basketball, whether you were Lou Alcindor, who's groomed Abdul Jabbar, or Bill Walton, or many of the greats. But he would spend an hour training them how to tie their shoes.
Hmm.
Because more injuries, especially back then when they had the Chuck Taylor Converse shoes that were made of canvas, or whatever the heck that material was, they were injured because they didn't tie their shoes correctly. Almost similar to the pebble in the shoe. An hour. And Bill Walton told me the story. All the freshmen roll their eyes and say, "This is like the 100th time I tied my shoes. Are you effing kidding me?" And he said, and God forbid, after that hour training, he ever saw your shoes for the next 4 years tied in correctly. He said, you wouldn't play. He would sit you down. So what comes to mind is you need to do the simple things better.
I love this concept, and Shawn and I have been talking about it a lot because it is really, it's those simple things that get overshadowed by the big things, right? We talk a lot about in business, like when things are going really, really well in business, if you have vulnerabilities in your business, oftentimes they're hard to see because everything is going really, really well, right? And then when all of a sudden things aren't going as well, those vulnerabilities, then they begin to show up. And oftentimes they're not big things, because if they were big things, you would be aware of them. They're the small, simple things that you got sloppy around, your team got sloppy around, and you didn't quite notice. But what they do is they do have that trickle effect to, in your analogy, injuring the business, right? Causing major problems. And it is really interesting how we all have a tendency to let the simple things get faulty because the big things are doing well until we're actually injured and hurting. And we go, oh, wait, it was because my shoe was untied. And so it is that broken window theory of, you know, you have to pay attention to the crack in the window because it does make a difference.
Well, it's a question of, if we're winning, does it matter if we tucked our shirts in? If
Right.
we're winning, does it matter if we tied our shoes right? A lot of people, frankly, and I get it, would say no. Like,
We're
why
winning,
do you care?
right?
We're winning. But what happens, like what you're saying, is that in those times, we don't realize that, hey, we are winning, but we're not doing as well as we could because we're not tying our shoes right. We're not executing on the fundamentals. And so super important. You brought up an interesting thing, Dave. I want to highlight, because we want to focus on entrepreneurs. I always say that all great coaching advice is counterintuitive. You have to do the hard things. And you said, well, God forbid that John Wooden saw you with your shoes tied incorrectly. He would sit you down. He would not allow you to play in the game. The second part that I think is actually hard in discussion about broken window theory, everybody's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I was telling Lacey, the hard part is enforcement. Enforcement, that especially for us as entrepreneurs, as leaders in business. If I were a police officer and I knew my job was to police speeding, and I radared a Lexus flying down the road and it was going 15 over, and I lit up the car, pulled them over, walked up to the car, and it was David Meltzer, I would be like, oh, Dave, dude, come on. Why are you going so fast?
Slap on the wrist, maybe.
Yeah.
That happens to me all the time. I'm blessed.
It would be hard, right? It's hard. It would be hard for me if my job was a police officer to pull over Dave for speeding, broken window, not pulling over Dave for assault and battery, speeding, and then to write the ticket because I know him. So what happens is in sports, I know these guys. I recruited them. Yeah, Dave didn't tie his shoe right, but he's the star. It's hard for me to say, Dave, I'm not going to tell you again, shoe's not tied right. You're going to sit the game against Stanford. That's hard. How do we overcome that? Because I know so many people in business that are like, yeah, my assistant's not doing their job. They don't do it right. I don't want to say anything. I mean, carrot or the stick. I'm more of a carrot kind of guy. How do we get better at enforcement?
Boundaries.
It's so interesting. As we all know, there's two things that hurt us in business, and it's FOMO and FOPO. FOMO is fear of missing out, and so we take dumb deals that aren't aligned with our timing and risk tolerance.
Sure.
And FOPO is fear of other people's opinions.
Oh,
And the more relative people are to us, we are afraid of their opinion.
hmm.
And so when we are annoying by asking people to be consistent, or telling them the truth, when we're annoying, we are afraid of their opinion of us. And so I changed my philosophy to the counterintuitive approach of being a leader in my business and in my family, because I find it quite applicable to children. It's very difficult to say tie your shoes for
Mhm.
the 15th time, or don't leave that there for the 15th time. I think much more difficult than even the kids that work with me are my own children, and some of my own children work with me, which makes it doubly hard to have the FOPO and the FOBO. And so by utilizing JOMO and JOPO, understanding that these simple things that we do better are only going to empower our children and our employees and our friends according to the relativity in our lives, that I have a joy of missing out. I have a joy of other people's opinion. And so I know the more they react or get defensive or show me resistance, the more I'm landing a point. And I'm illustrating not only the issue of the broken window, but the importance of the consistency, that I'm not going to, I care so much about you that I'm not going to let you speed, David. I care so much about you that although you're going to think I'm a dick for giving you a ticket, that I'm also showing you that this is the safest way to drive, or whatever the issue may be. So have JOMO and JOPO and illustrate the opposite, or like you said, the counterintuitive nature of being a leader. And you can actually find great joy in empowering others. And sooner or later, you will be thanked for, and as we all do, all our hardest teachers and our hardest um, aunts and uncles and parents and the hardest coaches we had are our favorite 20 years later.
Well, it's that whole idea of how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And I'm listening to you talk about how by creating those boundaries and having those conversations, it truly empowers other people and shows them how much you care and love them. The hardest person to do that with is ourselves, right? And it's that whole concept of waking up and do you make your bed in the morning, right? Those little things, those disciplines, those consistencies. And I find that being an entrepreneur and working with entrepreneurs, while we can have open discussions around we need to be better leaders to the people in our businesses, we need to also talk about being better leaders to ourselves. Because while you may tell somebody over here, broken window, you need to do A, B, and C, sometimes you yourself are not even doing those things or being consistent. And I think too, there is sometimes you have to create boundaries and disciplines because you love yourself and it will empower you too. But it's easy for us to slip. And I think that that's like, how do we create those disciplines? Because it starts with us, right? We are responsible for us, our own tasks, our behaviors, even more so than those of others, right?
For me, I think it boils down. Then it's interesting because it comes back full circle. And for Lacey, sort of the queen of systems in business, and Dave, the king of consistent and persistent pursuits. This boils down to these systems and disciplines, right? These are the guardrails that keep us going. I don't even know why. I'm an avid fan or avid viewer, but one time I saw a Colin Cowherd clip, and he said something that, I mean, I've taken and I've made this one of my mantras. I teach on it all the time. And he was talking about Bill Belichick and the Patriots and how important it was to have a system. There, the offensive systems, defensive systems. And he said, because players get tired, systems don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, in business, it's the same way. Players get tired, Systems don't. Listen, we've all been there. We've been running, at full speed. Dave does it all the time. He finds joy of running full speed. I call that jofs.
Lots of jokes in my life.
But we get tired. But what happens is, even when we're tired, if we have systems, that's how we don't forget to check our calendar. That's how we don't forget to do our reach outs. That's how we don't forget to do whatever the things are. That's how we make sure that we are observant of the broken windows. That's how we are checking the small things. So this creates an interesting dichotomy. They say that the mark of a truly successful individual is the ability to maintain two seemingly opposing ideas simultaneously in one's mind. On one hand, I do agree that there is more than one right way to do anything. There's more than one right way to cut a tomato, more than one right way to do anything. But at the same time, when it comes to you and your business, it is very important that you have established the right way to do everything. Back to John Wooden, there is more than one right way to tie a shoe, but not if you're playing basketball at UCLA. Then you tie your shoe this way. By creating a system, what that does is that removes the variables and takes away that potential for error. I know that you are a big systems guy, email systems, calendar systems. Tell us some of the systems that are important that kind of make sure that you stay on track.
Well, you mentioned one, student of the calendar is a system. It's a system of understanding the 24 hours according to the circumstances of each day that allows you to derive more lessons to improve those systems constantly. And so student of the calendar implores you to look at the activities that you have planned, unplanned, paid for, unpaid for in your sleep. Unwinding routine is actually a system to put my mind, body, and soul in a position to recover better each day and to access information. For me, theta meditation is a system as well. And then I have other systems in place that allow me for within the context of time to be more efficient, effective, and statistically successful. So for me, I have systems that involved how do I start at the top of the funnel to example, give away my free book. There's a system that I utilize in order to give away my free book, which then leads to a system of getting people to be to free Friday training. That is a system to then be able to get them into a group setting and a system to put them on a wait list for one-on-one coaching or business advisory. Those are all individual systems in place. I have a system at the airport to travel. So I have systems from if I'm renting a car to park my car a few inches farther out, because I know it's difficult to remember where you park and big parking lots. I have a system to pack. I have a system to not check baggage, right? I have a system of what I do with my toiletries. And so there's all these different systems. And I want to say that these systems that's why Lacey and I as a combination, because she's the queen of systems, but I'm the king of consistency. And those together are a powerful combination. That if you're consistent with the systems are always improving. So they don't stay the same. Although we have, many options and opportunities to utilize systems in different ways, like tying our shoes. I imagine, knowing John Wooden in his philosophy, that he was improving upon his system because everybody was consistent and he was enforcing the consistent behavior and utilization of the system to tying shoes, that they learned lessons along the way that improved his system of tying shoes.
One of your systems I love that you haven't talked about lately, you should bring it back, is the email system.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's huge. I have a foldering system. Look at capturing lessons and attaching stories to them every Sunday. So everything that resonates with me, which means if I strongly agree or strongly disagree, I feel something with a lesson, I capture it. It ends up in my email. I put it into a capture folder. And then on Sundays, I subcategorize and attach stories to each of the lessons that resonate with me. And I build a repertoire repository that helps me to remember the fact that I have a system for my email.
A system for the system. I love it.
You got to have a system for
I do. It's crazy.
I think that's the most important thing, right? When we're talking about disciplines, there's that saying, "Oh, we're all creatures of habit." No, we're not. If we were, then it would be relatively easy for us to pick up any habit any day with any desire. That's not true. I don't believe that statement's true. We have to force ourselves to create a habit, to be disciplined around something. But I think that's what's most important. A lot of times people, when they're trying to create a new behavior, what they're missing is the capturing of that behavior, right? Like you create systems around everything. If I'm trying to be a better thinker, if I'm trying to grow and expand my business, I need to also have ways of capturing my ideas, capturing my content. There needs to be systems around everything, not just behaviors, right? Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like there needs to be systems around every single thing that you do in order to be effective and efficient in the thing that you're going after, right?
Yeah, that's where Dave's talking about wind down routine, systems around
personal systems,
thought
business
patterns,
systems, relationship
learning.
systems. Yeah.
All of that.
Just sleeping itself, a system of temperature, weighted blankets, light regulation, whatever it may be, when to eat, all of those things.
The water you drink, the supplements you take before bed. I mean, I have systems in the airport, right? I always go and stop and get a water. Like I have a system away, so I'm always prepared, right? There has to be something, a discipline almost around everything.
Yeah, and it pays off though. I mean, Lacey, you recently won a huge pitch competition for your new business, which goes alongside or aligned with longevity and health. And what I found really interesting is if you're wondering where to start, because there's systems for everything and you're not a systems person like the queen of systems, then look at the 4 things that you need to live. And I think it's interesting for me because Lacey and Stacy's business is about the 4 things that we need to live. So 1, if you don't breathe, you're dead. So have a system for breathing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't eat, you're dead. So have systems for nutrition. If you don't drink, you're dead. So
Water.
have a system for hydration. Yeah, thank you. And then he knows my history. And then the last one is if you don't sleep, you will die. So have a system for sleep. So if you're wondering where to start with systems, start with the most important things that are indicated by human experience to keep the human experience going, which is what Lacey's and Stacy's business is about, is to create a longer human experience, a more fulfilled, passionate, purposeful, and profitable experience. In order to do so, focus in on what you're doing, breathing, eating, drinking, and of course, sleeping, and that longevity. The practical side of the human experience will be much more fulfilled, passionate, purposeful, and even profitable.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I think one of the most important things is you don't have to try to figure this all out on your own. There's plenty of people out there that have figured out fantastic systems for sleep, for nutrition, for
email. For email.
For email, for whatever it may be. So, sometimes it's not, I need to find a system for this. It's, I just need a system to figure out how I will find out these things. And then you will win, right? A system for asking and a system for research. And then you can apply, test it out, see what works best for you. And then you will have created your own systems. So
you're off to Chicago this week. Is that where people can find you?
I'm going to be several places. So I will be in Chicago today and tomorrow. Blessed to be there. Damon John, Goggins, Itzler, of course, the usual Tim Story and myself. And then Friday, we'll be in Irvine. I'll be announcing a global corporate office for Meltzer Studios and my special announcement with Napoleon Hill Institute. And so right next to the airport in Orange County. So now we have Orange County, Vegas, and SoFi Stadium, where we'll be next week all together for our SoFi Content Day. And if you're interested in joining us, please reach out. But Saturday's the big day for me. We are going to be making a huge announcement at the Napoleon Hill Archives in Wise, Virginia. the biggest for me related to my legacy, opportunity, and blessing. So we'll be making a huge announcement on Saturday with Napoleon Hill Institute, and very excited about that. So Chicago, Irvine, Wise, Virginia, where Napoleon Hill was born, at the archives. And then next week, of course, Los Angeles with Shawn and Lacey at SoFi Stadium with an incredible content day. So come and join us. I cannot wait to see both of you.
It's going to be fantastic. Indiana Hoosiers ranked number 13 in the country.
Undefeated, and that meant that our home is being rented for high dollars every single
there you
game.
go.
Go Hoosiers.
All right, everybody, join us every Tuesday right here on Get Booked Solid. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to